Between 1981 and 1982, 29 Israelis are murdered, more than 300 injured. Yasser Arafat's PLO has staged nearly 300 terrorist attacks from Lebanon. Thousands of Jews in the Galilee flee their homes or hide in bomb shelters. The Jewish state has had enough. Israeli troops enter Lebanon to drive out PLO terrorists in Operation Peace for Galilee. But much of the American press quickly turns against the Jewish state.
1982, the year of Camera's founding, was a major turning point in global media coverage of Israel, minimizing or ignoring entirely the previous 11 months of Palestinian attacks. Many in the media assaulted Israel viciously for defending itself, and this was a new chapter.
Fed up with the dishonest news coverage, a grassroots organization, Camera, rises up. First in Washington, D.C., where founder Win Meiselman gathered together friends who were appalled at the reporting by the Washington Post and NBC. Camera chapters soon opened in other cities, including Boston, which in 1990 became Camera's headquarters. Camera's mission? To ensure that Americans receive fair and accurate coverage of the world's only Jewish state, knowing that public perception of events shapes public policy. Just 5 years after Lebanon is the first Intifada. Media bias dramatically transforms Israel into Goliath, Arab Palestinians into David.
No one did as much to promote the image of Palestinian Arabs as blameless freedom fighters facing an Israeli war machine as journalists in those years. Coverage was often grotesque, with Israel compared to Nazis and saturation front-page focus, elevating the story to global importance.
In the Middle East today, United Nations officials say that the Israelis have beaten another Palestinian to death in the occupied territories. He was 15 years old.
The public hears little of the annihilationist rhetoric coming from Palestinian leaders, media, and school teachers, hate-filled books, and TV programs. Camera launches public campaigns opposing the false coverage, running full-page ads, issuing mass action alerts, galvanizing the largest pro-Israel volunteer letter-writing team on the planet, inspiring pro-Israel Americans fed up with lies about Israel who seek leadership unafraid to confront the media onslaught, and then sponsoring a landmark conference in 1989.
And for too long, we have been at the mercy of the media. We have not had the information necessary to allow us to say more than, "That doesn't sound right. That doesn't read right. That doesn't look right." Now we know. And thanks to Camera, we know the truth and we are able to read with a more critical eye.
As the Intifada gave way to Oslo, and Oslo gave way to suicide bombers, Camera called for full media coverage of Yasser Arafat's double talk, promising peace to Western audiences, while to the Arab world, promising Israel's destruction.
There was great reluctance to report that Arafat was winking at terrorism as part of the stage plan to destroy Israel. Camera demanded journalists tell the whole story and report Palestinian violations of the peace agreements. We also prompted corrections by editors of factual errors on a scale never seen before.
Our next witness is Dr. Alex Safian of the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting in America, Camera.
We log more complaints about programming on NPR, PBS, and Pacifica than from any other source.
The media often tried to explain away terrorism. After Hamas blew up a bus, National Public Radio, NPR, quickly aired a report telling listeners the terrorist group is also engaged in honey and cheese making. We bombarded the network with complaints and ran ads about that one.
Year after year, PBS had aired propaganda films demonizing Israel. We put a stop to that after a long campaign over Journey to the Occupied Lands.
The documentary was marred by material error and distortion so extensive as to render the film fundamentally false.
The point was to show we would name and shame, and there would be a cost for defaming Israel.
The explosion of violence at the start of the 21st century marks another eruption of reckless media coverage. In response, Camera hires more staff, increases publishing, and dramatically expands its activist network. By 2000, Camera is the premier counterforce to biased Middle East journalism in the world. When Arafat rejects a generous Israeli peace offer without even a counteroffer and instead unleashes a wave of horrific suicide bombing in Jewish civilian areas, the media erupts against Israel.
We were continuously warning in alerts, publications, and meetings with journalists that the horrific Palestinian demonization of Jews was dangerous. Covering this up not only completely distorts what's actually happening, but it delays any possible peace.
On the afternoon of August 9, 2001, Alam Tamimi leads a suicide bomber into the crowded Sbarro pizza restaurant in downtown Jerusalem. Dozens of women, children, and babies are slaughtered.
Among the victims was my 15-year-old daughter, Malki. Malki was full of life, one of the happiest people I ever knew. There was no aspect of her life that didn't involve trying to help people and trying to make people feel good. Malki was murdered during the school holidays at the end of her 10th grade. And being school holidays, she didn't get up that early. I do get up early, and I didn't see her that day. Didn't see anything else of relating to her until the following day when we buried her. Malki went off to do good, as she pretty much always did. She and Michal, her best friend, went off to the other side of the neighborhood where we lived and decorated the bedroom of a girl who was coming back that day from a family holiday in the United States. And then they had some time. So in one of those decisions that changes so many lives, they got off the bus and went into their favorite place, which was the Sbarro Pizzeria at the corner of King George and Jaffa. And they were standing there at the counter when a young man, looking not unusual, walked in with a guitar case on his back and was standing right next to them. Of course, it wasn't just a guitar case, and the explosion that he created was massive and really never to be forgotten in Jerusalem, and never to leave the families who lost loved ones, will never leave them alone. Camera has been indispensable in creating awareness among Americans of, first of all, the magnitude of the loss that people who've been struck by terrorism have to endure. But it's also gone a very great way towards helping us to go after this woman, to go after the terrorist, bring the terrorist to justice in the United States. That work has been accompanied pretty much from its inception by the support, the encouragement, and the good advice of the people at Camera. I take my hat off to them. They do a fabulous job.
No one knew how people would interpret that terrible day. Some in Israel thought it would increase sympathy for what they'd been enduring. That didn't happen. Instead, the hate-filled messages on display at the Durban I conference in South Africa just days before 9/11 became the template.
You're a waste of time. You are Zionist, man. You're racist.
You're a person.
Racist.
You're a person, and I don't hate
Zionist.
you. I don't hate you.
I hate you because you're Zionist.
It was here that many first learned the libel of Israeli apartheid, a slander now being widely spread by organizations like B'Tselem, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the UN, all organizations whose lies have been exposed by Camera.
Young people in the West continue to be educated by college professors who teach that Israeli apartheid and American imperialism are the reasons for global suffering, conflict, and terrorism. Camera on Campus is among the first pro-Israel organizations to fight back against such hate-filled propaganda at our colleges and universities. By the early 1990s, Camera is publishing and distributing tens of thousands of campus newsletters. Beginning in 2000, Camera's campus program recruits and trains brave pro-Israel students, conducting workshops, holding conferences, and bringing speakers to colleges and universities across the United States, Canada, Israel, and Great Britain.
Words matter. When you use incorrect words, you start an incorrect conversation. You cannot have a debate when you're not even using the correct terminology.
Every year, Camera works with students from across nearly 100 campuses, training them to promote the truth about Israel and the Jewish people to reach thousands of their peers.
And I know that Camera's there at the drop of a hat with whatever we need. If we suddenly need flags, if there's, a resolution on the table and I need help drafting something, I know that my campus coordinators are super motivated to help me with whatever I can. And that's one thing I like about Camera.
And what's really special is a lot of the programming is tailored to what your campus is like. So if your main problem on campus is apathy, there's a program dedicated to how to get people involved.
They'll ask you what you need and what what your goals are, and they help you fulfill that, because we know our campus is better than anyone else does.
Because of generous donors, and thanks to these amazing students, anti-Israel professors and campus activists don't get a free ride. The struggle goes on. From the rhetoric of Amnesty International, Ben & Jerry's, and the Squad, to white nationalists and anti-Semitic academics, Camera continues to confront the vilification of Jews and Israel in the media and academia. It combats Palestinian efforts to turn American Christian support away from Israel. And to draw public attention to their shoddy record on Israel and Jews, Camera sponsors giant billboards outside the New York Times building in Manhattan and across the city. It takes on the lies in the British media, in the Spanish language media, in the Hebrew media, in the Arabic media. It strengthens Americans with the truth through popular webinars and lecture series. As anti-Israel propaganda gains traction in K-12 curricula in schools as well as on campus, Camera launches an important new education institute focused on countering biased curricula, books, programs, and films. And Camera continues producing monographs, magazines, and publishing thousands of articles in English, Spanish, Hebrew, and Arabic, always with the aim to educate and activate. Educate and activate.
Over the last 40 years, we've had real impact, improved a lot of what's told to the world about Israel, educated millions of people, and helped thousands of students, and we're very proud of all that, but we can never let up.
For 40 years, Camera's vision, tenacity, and action set the record straight on media coverage of the Middle East and have ensured that public opinion remains sensitive to Israel's challenges.
So many times, people have said to us at Camera, don't you get discouraged, depressed with the never-ending tsunami? Absolutely not. When you're on your feet fighting, you actually feel good. When you're surrounded by amazing supporters and completely dedicated staff, you're strong. We know the truth is on our side, and above all, we know our purpose is deep and important.
And we will continue to hold accountable all those who misrepresent the truth, because what we do strengthens Israel, America, and democracy.